I'm Ashley. As you could probably tell from the accent, I'm from Trinidad. And like you, I grew up in poverty and I by a single mom, abused as a child. And a few years ago, I was raped and almost killed. And so all of these things have kind of taught me that the world isn't fair, and expecting it to be fair is kind of silly. So, but my
Actually,
mom,
you can't just say those things to me without, like letting that sink for a second. So I don't want to just brush past that. So it's like getting hit me in the head with it. And I just want to say sorry for whatever you went through.
mhm,
We tend to become a little disassociated from the pain that we've been into. So, which I get
mhm.
it, we got to survive in the world, but I'm sorry. Just flat.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. And I was lucky enough to, have an amazing therapist. I got her right out of her master's, so she was really cheap. I'm very lucky for that. But yeah, so I'm lucky that I got the help that I needed to understand that and to put that into perspective of the rest of my life. So but again, just to go back to, I saw, how my mom and my grandma, in particular, the women in my life, really pulled us out of poverty and pulled themselves out of like situations through starting small businesses and hustling all the time. And so I've really learned that entrepreneurship can be powerful, not just to make money and like live a laptop lifestyle or whatever, but to like really make the world a more equal place. And so my work recently, in the past few months especially, has been working with a lot of nonprofits as a wide range. So, ecotourism, education for girls, survivors of gender-based violence, but they are all trying to like have little incubators to help these people start their own businesses so that they can have a level of like financial security and bridge that inequality gap as well. And so, because of that experience, my question, because I've been working with so many business owners, they tend to fall in love with the idea a lot. And there's not, we don't really think about like, is this a sustainable business model? Is there a market for this? So I was wondering if, based on your experience, you had any kind of insights for me to help them validate their business idea so that it could actually be successful in the long term.
I mean, what a great, 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 great practical question. I mean, I talk a lot about that in my book because it all stems, I believe, from not stems, but there's a simple way to reset it, which is for people to focus not on an opportunity, but always keep one eye on opportunity cost. I find that a lot of people um, rush to pursue their epiphany because they're kind of worried it'll be the only one they ever have, right? And
Okay.
I talk in my book like ideas are like real estate, right? You fall in love with the house and then you don't get the house. You're like, oh, that was the house, and then a week later you're like, no, that's the house. And ideas are like homes in real estate. There's always a better one around the corner. There's always a better one coming on the market in a couple of weeks. It's usually how it goes. So I work on not only mentoring other people to reframe how they see opportunity. I do it to myself. People are usually bummed out when I say it's like, oh, are you trying to talk me out of this? It's like, no, no, no. I'm trying to talk you into it. But the way to talk you into it is to process the opportunity cost. No matter what you do, will always take 3 to 5 years to be successful, and the journey will look nothing like what you've proposed, right? And so you need to forecast future Matt, right, future self, and say, in 3 years from now, will this have been, worth it, right? Will I still be pursuing it with all my excitement and fervor right now? So that's number one is opportunity cost. Number two, I say, are you really pursuing this because you're running away from something or you're running to something? The best decisions and best opportunities are the ones where we're running to it. We're so excited about that thing, right? And we're not simply just doing because we want to get out of poverty, get out of our bad situation, right? And then three, you know, is this a business or is this really a feature? People never want to ask that question. I have some of the dumbest decisions ever. If I told you some dumb decisions I made, it's because I became so enamored with the idea. And I was afraid to ask myself, is it really a feature that's an adjunct to an existing business? Is it really, my like something that could sustain itself? And so I go through this decision matrix and ask myself the questions. Number one, how big is the universe of people willing to pay for this, right? Is the universe of people willing to pay for that? What percentage am I likely to convert? If I converted that percentage and I think truly about the profitability of that, what's it going to throw off? Is that really enough to feed my family? If it is, then it's solved the first test, right? Or am I building it under the unarticulated hope that somebody out there will be willing to buy it, even though it doesn't make any economic sense. Which, by the way, that is usually the one where if it's like, no, no, but if I get like 100,000 users, even though I don't have a viable business model, somebody else will buy it. That's called hope, right? I always say hope is not a business strategy. If you can't articulate to me the way it becomes a viable business with a healthy profit margin that is enough to feed at least yourself, we can start there. Then you don't have a business, you have a pipe dream. So I kind of go through that. I know I'm all over the place, but that's my general sequence because this happens all the time. Even with me, I've had to discipline myself and go through that sort of so I don't really get to build this, because but it's not worth my time. And I do think it does stem from the first thing I talked about, which is people are like, I got this idea, and like they don't want to ask questions. So last point, and I say this to anybody listening, when I try to deconstruct what went wrong in somebody's life, when they're sort of sad and they've been beaten up by a 4-year endeavor with a business that ultimately failed, it's not because they implemented the wrong decision at a threshold often. It's not because they didn't fire XYZ employee that was toxic. It's not because their market fell out, the product fell out of favor. It's because they didn't ask the questions that Ashley is talking about right now about, is this really a business or is this a feature? So I find the biggest failures in life are because we refuse to ask the right questions at the inception of the journey because we were scared of the answers more than we pursued the wrong strategic path. Hopefully that's helpful.
It is very helpful, and if we have time, I'll circle back with a follow-up.
Just like a whole chapter of the book. So, because I love this topic, I love the idea
Mhm,
of opportunity cost. I'm always thinking about what is the highest and best use of Matt's time and energy today. And
mhm,
that answer to that question is always different every couple of months because I'm iterating and changing.
right. I'm
You
looking forward to the book because I
can,
feel like,
you can ask a follow up right now. I don't. We don't. We have time.
well, what would you say to somebody then, like a business owner whose business idea is actually a feature and not a viable business idea? Like,
Great.
how do you?
If Mr. Wonderful was here, he would say, "Take it out back and shoot it." Just yeah. One is not very nice, and two, not necessary. And the reason
Mhm,
why every successful business on planet Earth does not resemble the original PowerPoint from 7 years earlier, right?
right.
You the universe is benevolent. It gives you multiple opportunities to avert disaster. And
Mhm,
so I always say, rather than burn the bridge down in this case, build a new bridge, right? Whatever you're doing right now that isn't successful and isn't ultimately likely to turn into a big business, you have within you the nucleus of a new successful business. I talk
okay.
about this idea, and let me make this less abstract. I talk about this idea I call proprietary insights, right? We all sit in the stream of data, of information. I don't care how mundane or crappy your job you think it is. You sit within a stream of data that within that is an actionable insight to either get a promotion or create a business. So let's use something I talk about in my book. Her name is Michelle Cordero Grant. She was vice president at Victoria's Secret. She was handling marketing, and she kept being bothered by the fact that she felt like the entire aesthetic and nomenclature around Victoria's Secret's branding, whether you agree with it or not, was designed to appeal to a male aesthetic about what they thought was beautiful and was not to actually appeal to women what they thought was comfortable and attractive, right? And she's like, I'm going to launch a new company. I'm going to basically crowdsource it through community. I'm going to launch a community of people and women and ask them, what do you really want in your lingerie marketing? All right. And she came up with these various insights. Undies felt like a more comfortable word. And there were like all these little insights. She launches this business off that simple proprietary insight that there should be a better way of marketing lingerie and creating community, and sold it for $100 million 5 years later. So what I would say to any of Ashley, anybody you're dealing with is like, all right, like let's iterate. Like it doesn't mean if we come to the conclusion that you are doomed, it doesn't mean that you are preordained to be doomed. It just means that you are doomed if you continue to perpetuate the status quo. So let's to figure out how do we iterate your existing infrastructure or your existing employees or your database, whatever the hell it is that you have. Somewhere in there is the nucleus of the germ of a great idea, but it begins with honesty and vulnerability of like, I'm screwed if I keep doing it the same way. And that's the part that people don't want to cross over because they're like, well, then what? Then I'm stupid, or then I can't feed my family. They don't realize that that's when the weight is removed from your shoulders. You know why? Actually, everybody you're talking to subconsciously knows they're screwed. And I do. They may not know at the moment you're talking to them, but they will know it eventually because, again, we are all wired to protect ourselves, right? So I think I switch it from a negative conversation to a positive, like, all right, let's break it down. What do you have? What proprietary insights or leverageable assets do you have so we can pivot and iterate to something better?
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to reading the book.
Such a great call is because, back to my point about what do people aspire to? People do aspire to economic freedom, taking care of their family. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And so a lot of my book showcases that particular journey of transcendence, crossing the threshold of self-sufficiency, creating your business. And a lot of that has to do with money, but actually a lot of it doesn't. Burning the boats is really about how to go all in and completely surrender and submit to your purpose, right? And so this call is a perfect illustration. If you looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you're all at the top. You know what I mean? You're self-actualized and you're now giving back. So what I love about this, it really illustrates what Burn the Boats is truly about. It's not about financial success. It's about realizing your destiny, right? And however that manifests. And most people's destiny is not to make a buck. It's to use that buck for something better. So I'm honored to spend time with you. My book is called Burn the Boats. It's my life's work. Put my heart and soul into it. You're doing amazing work, Ashley. Incredible. If ever there's a situation you need my help in, same thing with you, Johnny. Same thing with you, Sakari. Like, if there's a situation, if there's a human out there in the world, be like, Matt, you might be uniquely able to change their life. Like, that makes me feel great. I randomly talked to an Iraqi refugee I met, and his daughters really want to visit Disneyland one day. So we email all the time. For me, I need to get close tactically.
Mhm.
I don't like serving on boards of directors. I don't want to sit in a boardroom and theoretically solve problems. I like to touch and feel. So if there's anything you think I'm uniquely positioned to do, just reach out.